Hello beautiful people, thank you for stopping by my channel. In today's video, I'll be showing you how you can make a custom monogram noodle board, also known as a wooden stove cover, from scratch. So if you'd like to see how it's done, stick around. Also, if you're new to my channel and would like to become a part of my internet family, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Let's jump right in. So I started by getting the wood cut for my project. You can get the professionals at Lowe's to cut your boards at whatever length you need. I got mine's cut at 29.5 inches for the width and 21 inches for the length. I got 6 boards cut at 29.5 and 2 at 21 inches. The 2 boards at the 21 inches will be for the handle. You see here the little mark that's on the wood? You don't have to worry about that because I'm going to get that out whenever I go over it with my sanding paper. So to begin, I prep my wood by sanding. I have an electric sander, but I could not put my hand on it, so I just took some of the sanding paper that I have to go on my electric sander, and I began to sand the wood myself by hand. And you just want to go across all the surfaces of the wood. Make sure you get all the sides, especially the ends, because the ends tend to be a little more raggedy and rigid. But you want to make sure you give the wood a nice sanding on all the edges, and this is going to serve very well for when you get ready to stain the wood. So this is just all a part of the prepping process. I'd like you to look here at the end of this board. You see how raggedy and rigid it is? This is what the end of the board looks like, especially after it has been cut. So that's why you want to take that sandpaper and get rid of those raggedy, jagged edges. You see how the little pieces of wood are flying off? So watch when I take this sanding paper and I smooth it out, what a huge difference it makes. You just want to give it a nice scrub with the sanding paper. Now you see the end? You see how smooth it looks on the end now, and there are no flyaways. That's why that is a very important step in the process. Now I'm placing the boards down to get them set up in the order that I want them to be once I get ready to secure them to the handles. And I'm flipping them over because, of course, we all have a side that we prefer with the wood, and I want to make sure that side will be faced up, and the side that I don't prefer as much will be on the bottom. Now I'm taking my electric drill and I'm pre-drilling these holes in the wood. And the reason why you want to drill these holes in the wood is so when you get ready to use your electric drill and screw the screws in, you don't want the wood to split. So by pre-drilling these holes, this will prevent the wood from splitting. These are the wood screws I use for the project, and you see they have a flat head, and that will keep your boards from scraping your stove top. And now I'm just taking my drill and I'm securing the boards with the screws. And I must admit, I had a really good time using my power tool. This project was so much fun. You see how flush the nails are once they're drilled into the wood. That's why you want to make sure you use these flat screws. That way the board doesn't scratch your stove top. And you see how the nails go in real nicely and it's flush to the wood. And I use 2 on each board. This is the wood stain that I'll be using to stain the noodle board. I want to say it's a dark walnut. I also have a sponge and a cloth that I'll be using to apply the stain. It's up to you if you whichever one you like to use, rather you use a paintbrush or a sponge or a cloth. I actually find that the cloth works the best. And also you want to make sure you use gloves whenever you're working with stain. You see, when the stain initially went on, it looks super dark, and I was a little worried at first because I'm like, oh my gosh, this looks so dark. But then once I took my cloth and I just started working it with my cloth, it started seeping in the pores like it's supposed to, and it started looking really good. So I definitely would recommend using the cloth versus using a paintbrush or a sponge. The cloth works the best when applying the stain. See how good that looks now? You can see the wood grain while I'm applying it on there. So yeah, you definitely want to use a cloth when you're putting the wood stain on. And you want to make sure you get in all the crevices and the cracks here. Just rub it on real nicely. Some folks, they like to stain the boards before they put it together. That's an option. Or if you do decide to stain it after it's been put together, just make sure you get in the creases real well and make sure that you stain the sides as well as the bottom. I stained my entire board. That way, it can serve multi-purposes for my client. But as you see here, I'm just taking my time applying the stain, making sure that I get it in all the areas, and I want to make sure I cover the board entirely. This is where I finally put my gloves on. I recommend you using gloves the entire time to prevent the stain from getting on your hands. So to get in those creases, I decided to take a butter knife and put it inside my cloth and run it along inside those seams just to be able to get the stain inside those creases real well. This is what the board looks like once it has been completely stained. Now it's time to add our hardware. These are the handles that I'm going to be adding to the board. I bought these handles from Lowe's. As you can see, they come with 2 screws in the packet that match the handles. So next, it's time for us to apply these handles to the board. You want to take your tape measure and measure both sides to make sure that you have the handles lined up evenly with one another on each side of the board. Now it's time to secure the handles with the drill. And you want to make sure that when you're drilling that the nail goes in very flush. Y'all see me getting down with my electric drill? I'm a pro, y'all. Check me out. Now it's time to add the monogram to our noodle board. This monogram was made using a Cricut machine. I contracted one of my friends to make the design for me. Thank you so much, Adrian, for making this monogram. You did an excellent job. It looked just like I wanted. So as you see here, I'm peeling away the backing so I can get ready to place the monogram on the board. And whenever you're dealing with these monograms, the vinyl monograms done with the Cricut machine, you want to make sure you remove the backing very carefully. As you see here, I'm taking my time and I'm slowly finessing the back away because I want to make sure that it doesn't tear in any way. And I'm slowly getting the paper off. So now I'm using this little plastic device to go across the monogram so it can adhere to the board. If you don't have one of these, you can use a credit card or something with a straight edge that you can use just to kind of get it to emboss on there. I'm taking my time here and I'm slowly peeling the transparent paper away. And you want to make sure you take your time on this because you don't want to mess your monogram up. Now I'm taking the name and I'm putting it inside the monogram to finish off the project. You can see and take my time to lay this down. I'm going to emboss it with the little plastic squeegee the same way that I did with the letter monogram, and transfer each of the letters on. So the final step will be to cover the board with some polyurethane. I'm going to go over it with a coat or two. This is what it looks like. It looks kind of white and milky in the can, however, it is going to dry clear. And I start off by applying it to the monogram first, because I definitely want to make sure that the monogram stays put, and this polyurethane is definitely going to keep it in place on the noodle board. So it's going to be locked and loaded. And don't worry, it is going to dry clear. And also, you want to make sure that you do use some gloves when you're doing this process as well. So for this one, I was back and forth with using the sponge as well as the paintbrush with applying the polyurethane. I want to make sure I got in all the creases and crevices. In addition to being a stove cover, I want them to be able to use this as a serving tray if they like, or to be able to have a multi-purpose in the household. So I'm making sure that I cover all the surfaces with the polyurethane, front and back. And this is what it looks like when the board has been completely covered. See, it has a nice little gloss to it. And this is the board sitting out drying. So I put a coat on the back as well. And this is what it looks like on the stove, our final piece. I believe this project came out beautifully. So this goes to show that it is quite simple for you to be able to create one of these noodle boards yourself. I hope this video inspires someone to get creative. Until next time, remember to be inspired.